UFC on ESPN 27 will be headlined by the exciting bantamweight contender Cory Sandhagen and the returning former champion TJ Dillashaw. The Sandman is coming off of two spectacular knockouts, one in under 30 seconds, as the second-ranked bantamweight in the world. The former champ is returning after a 2-year suspension and is coming off a 4-fight bantamweight win streak. Both fighters are knockout artists looking to cement their shot for a title with a win in this matchup. Both fighters are known to put on a show, win or lose, and this fight should be no different. In this video, we'll break down both fighters and how they match up against each other. Before we get into it, we just want to quickly announce that we at MMA Access have finally launched our own line of apparel. If you would like a way to support the channel or just rep the MMA scene of your own country, click the link in the description below. Now, let's first take a look at the tail of the tape. Cory Sandhagen stands at 5 foot 11 inches tall with a reach of 70 inches and a finish rate of 64%. TJ Dillashaw stands at 5 foot 6 inches tall with a reach of 67 inches and a finish rate of 69%. Now, let's start with the striking, beginning with Sandhagen. Cory is a powerful and creative striker. Creative is definitely the right word to use, given his wide array of striking tools and unorthodox angles. Being primarily a boxer, Sandhagen is an expert at working the body, and you could see it in most of his finishes that body shots played a significant factor. He loves to dig in deep shots to the body with his left hook, which is what he used to drop Austin Arnett in their bout. He's very confident in his striking, switching seamlessly between orthodox and southpaw to stay unpredictable. He also often fights with his hands low, popping punches from awkward and low angles. Keeping your hands low can be risky for most fighters, but for Cory Sandhagen, he's just extremely hard to hit. Sandhagen has the 9th highest significant strikes landed per minute at 6.85 in UFC history. He has a low significant strikes absorbed per minute of 3.89, giving him the 8th highest striking differential in UFC history at 2.96. If there's one thing that never lies, it's the numbers, and the numbers clearly suggest that Cory Sandhagen is an elite striker. Although Sandhagen does great work with the hands, we have to touch on his signature flying knee, which he throws more than Yoel Romero. He can be airborne in an instant and has dropped or knocked out multiple people in his career with that exact move. He also uses his knees in various clinch situations, but we'll touch on that a little later. Cory Sandhagen is a hard man to time, and his rhythm is always unpredictable, making it that much more difficult for his opponent to dial on in. Moving on to the former champion, Dillashaw is an excellent striker in his own right. Having half of his wins come by knockout, with 7 out of the 8 being in the UFC, TJ comes in with some heavy hands. He utilizes crisp striking fundamentals and employs great feints that pay dividends during the fight. This includes feigning low kicks then punching high, or feigning a takedown to come up with a head kick. When he dropped Renan Barão in their rematch, TJ used a pump fake with his jab and came over the top with a powerful cross. TJ likes to mix in jabs to the body to open up the head for his right hand. Also, TJ just isn't all punches. He uses head kicks very often and lands them very often. He sets them up very well with feints and punches and gives his opponents lots of angles to worry about. He'll mix in his low and body kicks with his high kicks to keep up the variety in his strikes. Dillashaw's striking is enhanced by his relentless pressure and strong cardio. As his opponents fade in the later round, he's just picking up steam. He has a significant strikes landed per minute of 5.37 and an absorbed per minute of 3.03. He also has a striking accuracy of 41% and a striking defense of 65%. When TJ Dillashaw smells blood, he amps up the pressure and volume to overwhelm his opponents. He doesn't usually get straight KO wins, rather goes for the kill with TKOs. His strong cardio allows him to keep up the pace and get the finish where others might struggle to find the energy to do so. The last thing that we want to mention is TJ's footwork, which is phenomenal. No matter the round, he is always light on his feet, moving side to side, rarely staying long enough for his opponent to dial in. This will be the key against Cory Sandhagen. Moving on to the ground game and clinch, let's start with Cory Sandhagen. He has 3 submissions out of 14 wins, with only 1 inside the UFC. He has also only attempted a submission twice in the UFC, both being against the guy he submitted, Mario Batista. His only loss in the UFC came by way of submission by the current champion, Aljamain Sterling. If you watched a few of his fights, you know that the ground isn't where Sandhagen wants to keep the fight, and he works hard to keep the fight standing. Sandhagen does struggle against offensive wrestlers though, having been taken down all his fights except one, which was ironically Frankie Edgar. He has a takedown defense of only 30% and a takedown accuracy of 50% and a takedown average of 1.07. In this fight against Dillashaw, this is definitely an area where Sandhagen needs to be careful. Although his wrestling may not be the best in the UFC, his clinch work is definitely top tier. Sandhagen is both taller and has a longer reach than most bantamweights, which allows him to be very effective in the tie clinch. When within clinch range or when he has his opponents up against the cage, Sandhagen will often use his tie clinch to land devastating knees to their head or body. He's also dangerous on the break with his hooks and elbows. Moving on to Dillashaw, there are definitely some parallels between the two in that submissions are not a heavy part of their game. Dillashaw does have 3 submission wins, but only 1 in the UFC, which came 9 years ago. In his last 8 fights, he's also only attempted 1 submission. So it might be safe to say a submission won't be primary game plan going into this fight, but offensive wrestling definitely might be. TJ has a takedown defense of 86% and a takedown accuracy of 37%, with a takedown average of 1.68. TJ has quick double leg entries that he sets up well with his hands, throwing a strike or two to distract his opponent. He likes to use his lead leg to wrap around and trip his opponents while he's committing to the double leg, which allows him to finish cleanly on top. When on top, TJ is always pressuring just like on the feet, either trying to advance position or lay down ground and pound. He doesn't just lay and pray like other fighters might when they're in a dominant position. Having solid wrestling to fall back on will definitely work to his advantage in this fight and possibly help keep Sandhagen on his toes. As for the clinch, Dillashaw is not one to spend much time in the clinch, and if he finds himself in it, he's usually disengaging as quickly as possible. His opponents sometimes use it as a tactic to slow down the pace of the fight and even wear on him a bit, so he's always diligent about it when it comes to keeping his opponents at a distance. Now, how do these fighters compare? It's probably safe to say that this fight will be a striking matchup, unless TJ decides to turn up the heat with some takedowns, which is a real possibility. Sandhagen holds physical advantages such as a 5-inch height and 3-inch reach advantage, which has proven to be very helpful in his career thus far. If Sandhagen's striking and reach start causing problems for TJ, we'll probably see him resort to takedowns and ground and pound, which has been a weak area for Sandhagen thus far. But if Sandhagen has evolved and learned to defend the takedowns and maintain the distance, he will also have to deal with TJ's pressure. Counter-striking and punishing TJ for his pressure and maybe a flying knee or two will likely be his game plan going into this fight. We've seen in TJ's career that he's had trouble with unorthodox fighters who are constantly mobile, like Dominic Cruz. There are a lot of unknown variables in this fight, especially with TJ and whether ring rust or injuries will play a factor. But TJ often has large gaps between his fights even when he's active. Also, TJ is coming off an EPO suspension, which helps people with their cardio, so we don't know if TJ will be the same fighter when it comes to the championship rounds. Another unknown factor is how much focus Sandhagen has placed on his defensive wrestling in this camp. All these questions will be answered on July 24th when these two face off against each other for what will likely be the #1 contender spot. Who do you think will win this fight? Tell us in the comments below. And as always, if you like our comment, please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe because it helps us out a ton. And as we mentioned earlier in the video, we finally dropped our merch line, so make sure to click the link in the description below and grab your gear today.